Hi. Oh, okay. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Gotta move that boot. Hey, what's up? Okay, so, we've got a lot of animals with us today. Everyone is hanging out. But I have some questions to answer, hi Han, that you guys sent me. So, I want to start with, actually, it's a lot of demonstration stuff, so I'll be excited to show you some things that you've been wondering how to do. So let's see. We've got, hey there Christine, so I know you said there's both bad and good types of vibrato, but I'm not sure if I get what you mean by that. Would you mind please demonstrating what you mean by good vibrato and then some examples of bad vibrato? So, yeah, so you can have fake vibrato or you can have, I would say, like released or natural vibrato. A lot of people use a manipulation of their throat in order to create a vibrato. So when you hear, you know, like 5-year-old prodigies who sing opera and have like this crazy release vibrato and sound 40, it's not real. It's not actually there. It's that's manipulation. But a lot of people in their late teens, mid-teens, early 20s also use manipulated vibrato because they hear this stuff that other people create, meaning older people or people who are more experienced, and they're like, oh, that sounds pretty good. I want to create that too. But no one ever teaches them how to do it, and so they end up sort of creating it with their throat. Not good. So we have a couple different types of what I call fake vibrato. We have diaphragmatic vibrato. So that's going to be literally the diaphragm moving in and out to create vibrato. How people do this consistently, I don't know. That sounds exhausting to me, but they do. And so that's going to be characterized by kind of a wobble. You hear that a lot with like old church ladies, that kind of like vocal wobble. That vocal wobble also comes with age, but like that sort of quality where it's very laggy, very big. So that's a diaphragmatic vibrato. We have vocal trill vibrato, and a lot of teachers actually teach vocal trill vibrato, and it drives me crazy. It means literally going back and forth between two notes. So a lot of teachers teach vibrato by saying, hey, just sing 2 notes back and forth really fast, and then that will be your vibrato. That's not what vibrato is. So they'll go, ah, and then they'll go faster until it's more of like a trill sort of sound. It's very manipulative in the throat because you are making yourself go back and forth very fast, and that's not what a release is. Then we have laryngeal vibrato. That's going to be moving the larynx up and down to create vibrato. Han, come on back. Come on. Yeah. It's going to be creating vibrato with your larynx. So moving this up and down right here to create sound. We hear a lot of musical theater artists do that. I would look up a video of that because it's a pretty particular sound. Also not good because we want release in the vibrato. Oh my gosh, they're all so cute. Ugh, I love my animals. So then we have, I would say like mouth and jaw controlled vibrato. So if you've ever seen Les Mis and seen Eddie Redmayne go, ah, that's not real vibrato. Or the jaw, so those are all not ways to create natural vibrato. It'll always just sound not released correctly. It'll sound kind of tight. It'll sound controlled in not a good way. So those are all, we don't want those. A release vibrato is going to be, it's going to happen when we have a lack of tension in our voice. So I like to think of tension is the enemy of vibrato. And so part of the problem is that I don't teach vibrato. I don't have like a vibrato day that we work on vibrato. We work on other aspects of technique, and then that leads us to vibrato. And so we have to work on tension release and support and breathing and all these other things. And when we're going in the right direction, vibrato naturally releases on its own. So release vibrato is going to just kind of start and just go. And it won't be controlled here, it won't be controlled here, it won't be controlled by the jaw. It's kind of hard to identify for yourself unless you're a voice teacher if you're using fake vibrato or not. Unless, of course, you have one of those very obvious tells, like, well, my jaw shakes, or I know I'm just singing 2 notes back and forth. But a lot of vibrato is controlled and tensed just by nature of the fact that we have a lot of muscles in our throat that we tend to try to control. So working with a voice teacher is always helpful to kind of comb away all of that. So, video question number 2, can you demonstrate some exercise to help release tension? Yes, because my last question is, could you demonstrate the foghorn exercise? I've read about it so many times, but I'm still not quite sure what exactly I'm supposed to do. So I'll put both of those together. So tension release is like it's a really big thing. A lot of teachers just say, you just need to relax more. And I think that's really bogus because you would have no idea how to relax. You know, if I just told you, just relax your larynx, you wouldn't know how to do that, and you shouldn't know how to do that. There's no place in your life where you're using your larynx regularly in this kind of way that you would know how to control it. Like, you need to learn how, and a teacher needs to help you to do that. Tension kind of comes in a lot of different places. Obviously, the ones that are easiest to relax are things like, my shoulders are tense. Okay, well, let that go. But that's not going to release your voice in terms of, like, your vibrato release and stuff. I mean, tension in your body is important to release. But if we're talking about, oh, your vibrato's not releasing because of tension, that's not a neck tension thing or a shoulder tension thing or a back tension thing. That's tension in your throat. And I think there's this really big misconception that if I have tension in my throat, I would feel it and my voice would hurt. But that's really not the case. When I first started my technique, I thought I probably don't have that much tension in my throat because I don't feel strained. I can sing pretty freely. It's probably fine. But the reality is we all have tension in our throats, and unless you're actively working to counteract it, you probably have it there. And by nature, we have to have some tension in our throats because we need to be able to sing. So, I mean, the idea of having no tension, that's impossible. That's just not going to work. But we're trying to reduce tension in our throats to have a more open and released sound. So until someone actively showed me how to release tension, I had no idea that I had tension. And now, looking back, I can very easily identify, oh, those things that were hard in my voice were hard because I had tension. So, my favorite exercise to work on tension release is the foghorn exercise. It's kind of one of the core parts of what I work on with myself and my students, and it's a completely raw sound. It's not polished. It's not supposed to be pretty. It is very fundamental. And it's a single note, and we just make kind of a foghorn sound. I'll show you how to do it, but the sound is, ooh. It's really loud. It feels like nothing in my throat. It's very resonant. It's super buzzy in your face. And it's very big. The ideal place for this exercise is between an A4 and a D4. I would start lower if you're earlier on. The higher you get, the harder it is. So we have a couple steps to get to this sound. We're going to take a tall breath in, meaning instead of going, ooh, we're going to go tall breath. The reason this is important is because the foghorn exercise is working to release the larynx, meaning lower the larynx gently. The way we lower the larynx is by raising the soft palate. The soft palate is this kind of, if you run your tongue along the top of your mouth, right back here in the back, there's sort of this, your hard bone turns to goopy skin, and that's where your soft palate is. If you've never raised your soft palate, well, you have, you just don't know it. It's when you yawn. When you yawn, that's what that raise is, a yawn. So you feel it sort of vaulting back here when you make that yawn sensation. We want to do that when we sing in order to lower the larynx. If you want to check this, you can put your hand right here on your throat and raise up your soft palate, meaning kind of do a yawn sensation if you're not sure how. And you'll feel your larynx here lower. Let's see if you can see mine when it does it. Whoa! See all that? See all of it go down? I'm making it do that. It's not just me opening my mouth. It doesn't have to, like, I can open my mouth without it happening. It's me raising up my soft palate. Woo! Yeah, so that's my larynx right here. It's right here, actually. Oh! And so we want to raise up the soft palate when we are about to sing this exercise. When you raise up your soft palate, you're going to feel all of these muscles here kind of relax and open up. You're going to think of kind of an open tube. Like you have a hollow tube here, and the sound just comes through it. The throat doesn't manipulate to create the sound. It just is there as a tube. Kind of like you're an instrument, like you're a clarinet. Clarinets don't move around to make the sounds, just the keys do. So think of this as kind of your instrument right here, saying open and hollow. Then, so we're going to have raising our soft palate with that tall breath, and then we're going to close around an ooh shape. Now what we don't want is we don't want to close really quick to an ooh. We don't want to go ooh. It's not very hollow. It feels pretty nasal and pretty not very loud. It's uncomfortable here. We want to close around a hollow ooh shape. So one way you can check this is you put your fingers here between your teeth. That way my jaw can't close. If my jaw closes, my fingers are pushed out. So I go, tall breath. Ooh. See my jaw still open here? It's not going anywhere. It's going to stay nice and open. So that's going to help me get my shape here. We want the lips to be in a kind of open O shape. Not super tight, not super big. If it's too small, the sound will get tight and uncomfortable. If it's too big, the sound will get hollow, diffused. Oh, sounds kind of breathy. So we're looking for this kind of middle ground. That's why I sort of like closing my lips around the ooh, because it sort of clicks into place where the right place is. Ooh. The higher we get, the more space I need. Ooh. You hear that little waver in the sound? It's actually my lips trembling because this is the first time I've even spoken this morning, so my, there's tension in my throat from sleeping and from not talking, and as I'm doing this foghorn and kind of reinforcing this feeling of larynx remaining low, my lips are like, this is hard, it's stressful, so my lips are the thing that are reacting to it, and they're kind of trembling. So the way I like using the foghorn is I like doing it as a tension release exercise. I can really think about diaphragm engagement with it, so I can think about if I work on engaging that foghorn from my diaphragm first, meaning lean from my diaphragm first, I get a nice full sound. But I also really like putting it into songs. So the foghorn can be polished. We have it's the same kind of sound, it's just one's polished, one is not. So when we're looking at a song and we're having some trouble with some part of the song, maybe there's a part that is feeling tight. I'll use the example of I was working on a song with a student and there was a D5 where they had to sing the word bride. And I don't have perfect pitch, but it's something like bride. It's really hard to release on it. It feels kind of tight, right? So we put the foghorn on the front of it. See how much more release is in the word bride when I do that? It's like so different. It's so much less tense or held while I do that note. So we can use it as sort of like a training wheel to get that openness. Basically, we're reminding the throat, hey, I don't need to react in order to create this sound. I can stay open and hollow and then create the sound. Then you take the foghorn off and I sort of just imagine it. Bride! Better. Not as good as with the foghorn, but it's better than the first time, certainly. It's way more release than the first time. So we can use this as sort of stepping stones to getting more release in the throat. You can see how this exercise really helps give you a concrete way to work on letting go of this tension in your larynx. You can't just tell someone, just let go of the larynx. It's not going to work. So the foghorn exercise and really consciously working on keeping this stable through that helps your muscle memory remind itself, hey, I actually don't need to manipulate this throat in order to create those sounds. As soon as something gets hard, meaning higher, or is in an uncomfortable place, our throat is generally the thing that says, oh, I'll help, I'll make that easier for you, and we'll start to tense and manipulate. And that's where we get that kind of uncomfortable feeling in our throat, whether that's a feeling of like a rising here, or tightness, or fatigue, or whatever. It's almost always because our larynx is rising up here and it's causing discomfort. So I like to pop the foghorn on the front of lots of different things to help release. Anytime I'm working on something and I'm feeling like I know I can release more than that, I go back to the foghorn. If I have 3 minutes to warm up in the car, I always do a foghorn. That's what I'm always doing. I don't do like lip trills, I don't do anything else. I just do the foghorn because if I can release tension into the song, I'm on the right track. I'll get there, you know? So that's really my number one tension release exercise that I like to work on. And I like to just kind of mold it into other things. I like to put a polished sound after it. So maybe one exercise I like to do is going a foghorn to an O. So, ooh. So the O is a polished sound, the oo is an unpolished sound. I'm getting the openness of the larynx and the throat on the oo, and then I'm releasing down to the O, and the goal is to try to keep as much of that openness and stability through the O. That's helping us kind of bring the openness into polished sounds. You could also do something like ooh, ah, ooh, oh, ah, ah is the pattern. Ooh on the bottom is a foghorn. The rest are polished. It's going to be harder because you're moving up in your range. You're kind of stretching up. So you're going to feel a desire to sort of tense there. I would say I would steer away from doing foghorn into belt at first because the foghorn's resonance is so round that switching to a belt sound is really hard to do immediately. That doesn't mean it's not helpful for belt, but I wouldn't try to go immediately from the foghorn straight into an ah, like a ooh. It's really hard to make that adjustment if you're not sure how to work with resonance. So I would kind of keep it in more rounder sounds to start, or at least like mixy sounds, not trying to go straight to belt until you know it better. Just like takeaway points from the foghorn. You're not looking for something pretty. You're not looking for something that's like you're going to bring home to mom and be like, look at my pretty voice. You're looking for a raw sound. You're looking for the throat to feel open and relaxed. It should feel like absolutely nothing here. If you feel any kind of tension, that means the larynx still isn't releasing. So we want to go back to that soft palate raise. We want to go back to that vaulting here. When you feel that vault up here in the back of your mouth, you'll feel everything here kind of relax and open up. You can even sometimes see it on your throat. I have a throat that telegraphs everything I do. So other people don't necessarily have that. But, you know, you can sometimes even see it in the throat. You know, if my larynx rises up, ah, see how it raised up there with it? So sometimes you can even see it. Not everyone has a throat that you can literally see everything you do on, much to the dismay of me when I'm in lessons. And I'm like, stop, I can't get away with anything. But watching for that larynx rise is what you're watching for if the tension is still high. Again, staying lower in the foghorn is a good place to start. Right around an A4 would be a good place to start. And the lower you get, it's not going to work as well. Meaning, like, if you try the foghorn on, like, a middle C. Oh, and this is female ranges. I'll give you male range in a second. You start in, like, a middle C, you'll find that the hollowness doesn't really work. So it's kind of a mid-range exercise because that's right when the tension really starts to mount, when we start to get to mid-range and higher. Male ranges, I would say, starting around an A3 or a B3-ish, moving up to maybe a D4, E flat 4, and then go higher. If you're a tenor, maybe more up to like the F4 range. But again, it's really, the reason there's a cap on it is not because it's not useful, it's because it becomes so unnecessarily difficult to manage the higher you get up because you have so much desire to control with the throat. That doesn't mean that we're just gonna have tension higher up, but the foghorn is such a neutralizing exercise that at a certain point it gets so unnecessarily hard up on like an F5 or a G5 that it's not really worth it. Better to do a foghorn lower and kind of release up rather than try to like get your larynx that stable that high because it's really, really hard. So that's a foghorn. That's kind of the game. The other thing I like about it is that you can add a lot of other aspects to it. Like I said, diaphragm engagement, mouth position, posture, resonance shape, lots of different things you can add on top to kind of like up the difficulty or just change your perspective on things. But yeah, it's my favorite. I usually start with foghorns with all my students every day. It gets easier the more you do it. If you get lost and you're having trouble, I like to go to like a hooty owl sound. So I go, ooh. Now this is different than ooh, where, you know, it's tight and you can even see my larynx rise up when you do that. You want to still think of that position, but kind of getting it out of the idea of I'm singing is helpful. And thinking of it more just like this is just a sound that I make. So that's kind of what I like to go to if I am feeling like I can't tap into the sound. So anywho, those were the questions for today. Lots of demonstration stuff, lots of fun stuff. Thanks for hanging out and learning with me. And I hope you have a great new year. So see you later. Bye-bye.